Hey, Corey here with Blood Brothers Racing. In this episode, we're going to see if I can modify that intake without destroying it and wasting my money. So follow along, check it out. I did want to show you one thing on the intake that I had to do, and I think I covered it last year, but maybe I didn't show in detail enough. These blower manifolds suck. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. So this is the blower shop cast manifold with the large intake openings. It's not the competition, it's just the street version. It's got water provisions and everything else. But if you look down in there, you see how hard it is to get these damn bolts in. And now let's see if I can get it to focus. So you can see it down there. See those bolts? It is super difficult. So what I had to do is, if you see on the side, I got holes cut out of the intake. I windowed it on purpose in order to be able to gain access to, let me show you real quick. So with the valve covers off, I can actually get a wrench inside here, as you can see, and then tighten it or loosen it, whatever I got to do. But the main reason I windowed it is once the blower is on, there's no getting access to these 6 bolts. And we had that one issue in Edgewater where it got loose enough to where it actually raised the intake and put a bunch of blower air where it's not supposed to be down in there. So we windowed this intake so we can check it between rounds. I was checking it nightly, and that seemed to be good enough, but they were loosening up. Before you say, why don't you just use Loctite or something like that? The issue with using Loctite on those bolts is they were so hard to get to that getting them loose would have been an issue. I tried blue Loctite, it didn't do anything. I tried RTV sealant, red, and I've tried like pipe dope. All of those loosened over time. The only thing I could think that might work is red Loctite, but I did not want to use red because I didn't want the aggravation of trying to get the bolts loose with being so difficult to get any type of tool in there. So windowing the side is the best option in my opinion. And I'm going to do the same thing if it works out. I believe it's going to with the new intake. I'll find out this weekend if that is a possibility. It should be no problem. But I don't have the ability to put both intakes side by side, so I wanted to show you before we took this one off. Alright, Chris and I just got back from Illinois where we dropped his block off at Performance Automotive, and we were able to pick up my new intake used from a guy that was selling it nearby. So it worked out real perfect. We got the new intake in. It is going to require some modification that I have learned over the years, and I'll show you what I'm going to do to it. It's very similar intake. It's a blower shop intake, just like the other one was, but this is the competition style, which has a few differences, and I'll show you those right now. Alright, so first thing you can see is there's no longer a water neck here. It's got an SFI burst panel on the front, which is required by NHRA when you're running methanol in a blower. The other thing is obviously the water neck gone. I'm gonna have to use these provisions back here and replumb my water system, which isn't a big deal because more than likely I was gonna have to move the radiator anyway, so it's all gotta be replumbed. The big thing with this is not only is the blow off, but you also have the port injection, which we aren't gonna use in the build until we get a little more horsepower. The jet size is too small to be usable and not get clogged all the time, so we're just going to put 12 injectors in the hat, 12 in here, and then actually it's going to be 8 in the hat and then 4 in the blower, which is a total of 8. The modifications we're going to make today is, as you can see, which I showed in the last video, the intake bolts are not accessible with the blower mounted. So I am going to mill out this area and all these pockets so that I can, with the valve covers off, put a wrench right through here and check on those bolts. We had an issue last year at Edgewater where they loosened up, put a bunch of high pressure air in the crankcase, blew the dipstick out, and I rolled down the track.
I launched, it felt really good. Again, it's slow off the line. I'm killing a bunch of ET off the line just so I could make the 10-0. So it take off, and then you could feel the power come in, and it felt really good. And all of a sudden, about the 500-foot mark, the whole cab just smoked up. And it smelled like an electrical problem I was having, so I just shut the electrical down real quick and coasted. But it turns out when we got to the end of the track that I evidently oiled the whole track down.
Yeah, and from my angle, from where you took off and looking down, it all was coming from the left side of the truck. The driver's side of the truck is just like it just came, and I just was like, oh my gosh, here we go again.
Not gonna let that happen again. We're gonna be able to check it at least nightly, maybe after every race or after every pass for a couple times to make sure they stay tight. So follow along. I'll get it up on the mill mounted, show you how I'm doing it, and you know, maybe give you some tips here and there. All right, boys, here's the setup on the old Brown & Sharp. It's like a 1940s machine, I believe. But I've got one of these cool heads that I can adjust it, you know, a bunch of different angles. This is how I did the last one. It kind of sucks because I got to reposition it twice per side, and every cut I have to change the location of this side's mount or hold down. So I will put a GoPro above, and you can watch me to some music to cut all these holes out. It's probably gonna take about an hour or so. Sorry the lighting's not gonna be great. We're still working on putting a bunch of shelving up. Coupe body. But we got a bunch of H-framing in the shop, and trying to get everything organized. So taking some down, putting some up, and trying to maximize the space of this. But with that comes with some disorganization, and need to add some lights above it. So hope it turns out okay. Enjoy the montage. Destroyed the intake yet, but still got some stuff to do. We went ahead and milled out those sections, and I'll show you what it looks like before I start on the die grinding stuff. Alright, so these are the chunks that were cut out of those holes right there, so we can get it to focus correctly. There we go. Cut those out, and then the next step is going to be dressing everything up, getting all these hard edges cleaned up with a die grinder, similar to porting a head or something. But that's what it looks like. Went ahead and windowed all those so I have access to them, and it's time to start die grinding and try to get it all cleaned up. All right, out here about to operate on this with some die grinders. I'm going to show you what I'm going to use, and one little pro tip. One thing particularly on aluminum, on carbide bits, do not use the, see if I can get it in focus, do not use the steel. I keep this one around just to show anybody that's around. It just gums up real bad. There is specific for aluminum. See if I focus, there you go. It's just got deeper little gullets there where the aluminum doesn't get in there. Another pro tip is I use nozzle dip, and you'll see it in a little cut shot that whenever I start on this, whenever I get the bit hot, I dip it in this, and it kind of makes the carbide bit not have the aluminum stick to it. So definitely, most guys have this laying around for welding. It's just a nozzle dip from the welding store. The other thing we're going to be using is this belt sander, I guess is what they call it. It's a 1/2 inch wide, I believe. I've got a bigger one too, but this one works really good for doing this type of work. The belts I'll be using are these red labels. They're from Amazon, I believe, and I've had really good luck with them. They're a little expensive though. I think they're a few bucks a piece, but they tend to last quite a while. I'm not looking for a perfect finish. This is a race car part, so I just want to make sure everything's smooth, that there's no stress risers or any issues with it maybe cracking later down the line. So I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. One thing I have to stress is whenever you're using these carbide bits on die grinders and doing like port work is to wear as much protection as possible. I've had so much stuff happen to be pulled out of my eyes or drilled out of my eyes while doing this that I'm kind of gun shy. So gun shy that I'm wearing a condom right now just to be sure that I'm fully protected. Alright, here is the not finished product, but probably pretty close. I'm going to run it through the parts cleaner, make sure there's nothing left in there. But all we're really trying to do is make everything nice and rounded so there's no stress risers in the future. But it's what I did to the last one, didn't have any issues. It's what I'll probably do to all of these if I ever put them in, just so you don't have any issues in the future, or if you do, you can easily mitigate by checking them. So to the parts washer, then I'll show you the final product. Alright guys, I just realized in this segment I lost some GoPro footage of me actually doing the work. And I know some of you guys enjoy seeing that, see how it's done type of thing. I'll show you the basics of what I did, and hopefully that'll suffice. And next time I'll do better, sorry. So in these openings, I started with this die grinder. And what I did was I just came in here and then made sure everything was nice and rounded, and kind of like that right there, and just made sure that there was no sharp areas. Sharp areas are stress risers, so as long as everything's nice and smooth, it should be just fine. There's a lot of thickness here, you know, as you can see, to hold everything. Once I did it with the die grinder to get the bulk removal, I then used the belt sander, just like that, and all the way around on all the edges, and I just rolled them over a little bit and then smoothed it out. Okay. And then the last thing I did was use one of these cartridge or barrel style sandpaper discs, and then just went around and basically did the same thing, kind of polished it a little bit. But they're very smooth, they don't cut your edge or cut your finger anywhere, and the big thing was stress risers. I don't have any of that, so it should be good. Alright, like I said, this video wasn't a big technical video like the last one. Be sure to follow along, because I'm gonna make a technical video about the mechanical injection side. That'll be certainly interesting and hopefully be successful as the watch before you buy on the blower. But until then, like, subscribe, comment on our stuff, tell us how we're doing. This last video, if I should have done it a different way, I'm up for learning. If you think it's gonna break because I took some of the strength out of the manifold, comment that below, let me know, and we can have a debate on it, but I think it'll be fine. Alright, well, without further ado, I'll let you guys go, and I appreciate all the support. Like, subscribe, comment. Thanks. Peace.